We're all welcoming Councilmember Eric Younger, who's participating remotely tonight. And with that out of the way, our first item up is item A3, the mayor's report. Welcome, Mayor Wheeler.
Council, good evening, and Council President, nice to see you. So I've got just a few items I want to share with you, some positive updates for the city. All right, so first slide, Hans. All right, so this project, I just wanted to show you a couple pictures. If you haven't been over into Manette recently, the south side of the street is about completed. And there's a nice, as you can just from these pictures, some nice pavement and sidewalk development here that's occurred. We're on the north side now. So there's what's going on there is this is kind of neat, but there's decorative poles that are the conduit base, the pole base, and the conduit is being set up for the new poles as they come in. Soil cells. This is it's a new. It's called a silva cell, where it's meant to make a tree more, create a healthier tree to sidewalk relationship, rather than what we see sometimes with trees where the roots kind of upset the sidewalk or the tree doesn't thrive. So there's some new technology there going in. Stormwater systems being, just updated as part of the project. So it's getting close. Next slide, please. Now, this one's kind of neat. And before we go any further, there's two things I want to update you on with the East 11th project. We have an anticipated project completion date by end of September. So we're looking at early fall. So that being said, there's one item that's outstanding, and they're the decorative lights. And they're a long lead item. So they're on order, and we expect those later on in the fall. So we all have the goals to see these things by our next milestone events, which would hopefully by the tree lighting ceremony. We'll see what we can do. If we have any control over that, then we'll work to make it happen. If not, we'll just stand ready for when those poles come in to act as soon as possible. So I wanted to share this with you. This is it's kind of a neat achievement by our city. We do a great job with our wastewater treatment plant, and it's an outstanding performance award, awarded from the Department of Ecology. And we always hold off until we actually have the awards in hand before we make the announcement. But I'm just going to read it real quick, and then I'm going to have Eric, if you want to come up. I'm just going to read it, hand it to Eric, and then let him say a few words. So, and Eric's the leader of that team. So this is Outstanding Performance Award. This is for 2022, Washington State Department of Ecology. Recognizes the exemplary effort and work accomplished by the city of Bremerton and a dedicated team at the Bremerton Wastewater Treatment Plant. Thank you for protecting and keeping Washington's waters clean. So thank you, Eric.
So thank you very much. I just had that in my hand. I actually wrote some stuff down here real quick. I found out last year I wasn't very good at ad-libbing, so here we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would first like to thank my staff for all their hard work and dedication. I think that goes without saying, but they do a real good job. Secondly, in addition to my colleagues at Public Works, I would like to thank the other divisions and departments within the city that help us in our endeavors. It is because of this teamwork that the city of Bremerton is receiving the 2022 award. I would also like to point out that the city of Bremerton received its first award back in 1999 and has received the award almost every year since 2005. My staff and I will continue to work hard and aim for another one of these next year. Thank you very much.
Okay, one more item to share. So Hans, we might have, let's see, Here we go. Thank you. So Beautify Bremerton's coming up, and this is, as you can see, September 9th, Saturday, Legion Field. And there's a lot of information here, including contact information, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. for yard waste in the city. Eligible Bremerton residents or landlords, eligible landlords are allowed to participate. So hope folks, you spread the word. I'll join you. We'll spread the word together and help our city keep being cleaner and cleaner. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Wheeler. All right, next up on the agenda, we have public recognition. As noted on the, I'm so sorry, my fault. Next up is consent agenda. All right, we'll go to the Clerk Cooper for the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you, President Coughlin. For approval on the items, A, claims and check register. 1, check numbers 403-799 through 403-960 and EFT numbers V38001 through V38111 and the grand total amount of $2,980,499.14. 2, regular payroll for pay period ending July 31st, 2023, in the amount of $1,092,349.21. 3, regular payroll payout and missed overtime for pay period ending July 31st, 2023, in the amount of $391. 4, retiree payroll for pay period ending July 31st, 2023, in the amount of $38,911.50. B, minutes of meeting August 2nd, 2023. C, minutes of study session August 9th, 2023. D, interlocal agreement with Kitsap Conservation District for the Rain Garden and Low Impact Development Project. F, create stormwater program manager position at pay band 14 of the Management Professional Confidential and Fiduciary Salary Plan. G, contract service order with Astound Business Solutions LLC for dark fiber services. H, water quality combined financial assistance agreement with the State of Washington Department of Ecology for the Tracyton Beach Road Sewer Improvements Project. I, ordinance number 5481 to amend BMC section 9.10.030 entitled rotating roster. And J, authorization to pursue legal action to abate nuisance and code violations at 1241 8th Street and 723 South Hartford Avenue. This concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the public wish to comment on any one of these consent agenda items? Let's make sure there's nobody online. I see nobody in the room. All right, no one online. Seeing none, we'll go to the council for a motion. Yes,
Move to
Councilmember
approve.
Chamberlain.
Oh, that's okay. I defer.
No, that's Councilmember Chamberlain.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I call for the question.
Councilmember Chamberlain.
Yes.
Fry.
Yes.
Dennehy.
Yes.
Goodnow.
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes.
Younger.
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is public recognition.
All right, as noted, public recognition is an opportunity for attendees to address the council on any city-related item that's not already listed on tonight's agenda. Please either approach the podium in the room or raise your hand on Zoom if viewing remotely and wait to be recognized. A reminder that it's election season, so please refrain from making any comments on political campaigns or ballot measures. We just ask that you state your name for use in the meeting minutes, limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and be aware I'll be using a timer system so that everyone's treated equally, nothing personal if I cut you off right at 3 minutes. And if you have any questions for the city, we'll try and get those answered. We won't have a back and forth, but we'll try and get any questions answered. And if we can't, then we'll have you write in and get that answer to you in writing. All right, so with that, we'll start ahead here in the room. Please go ahead.
I am Mary Lou Long, a longtime resident of Bremerton, and I'd like to once again say the Pledge of Allegiance, as I'm hoping that the council will someday do the same as an opening to our meetings, our public meetings, in a formal recognition of the nation that we all belong to. And if anyone would like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me, I invite you to do that now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Somebody brought up the questioning of my use of the word of dystopia. It says, we don't need to read a fictional book or write about dystopian society. We're living in one. As I see it, egoism has taken hold of our social order. What would Jesus do? This is referring to the homeless people on the streets. There isn't enough taxpayers' money to take care of their own families, let alone everyone that finds it too hard to cope with reality by offering a service that will support them. There are 37 tents and approximately 50 people, according to the person's called Jay. He's noted as being the mayor of the tent city and he's living on Marvin Williams, or next to Marvin Williams Center on Martin Luther King Way. I was thinking about this, and I've been thinking about it ever since the city attempted to erase, not ERACE, but ERASE, a municipal code about no camping on city property. I am not for that. I believe we should keep the code and we should find other ways to treat the situation. Anyway, the group ERACE, ERACE, has almost that many members, or has enough members, plus the city council and the mayor, to probably take in one of those 50 individuals to eliminate the stress and the health hazard. Anyway, the problem could be erased tomorrow. If we're waiting for, and that was the word ERASED, let's see. And waiting for government to find a solution is not the answer. I believe the council and the mayor are in total dilemma as to what to do. They haven't proposed anything yet. So that being said, this morning, my husband and I attended the Boy Scouts breakfast trying to earn money to help that organization. And the mayor was there, it was very nice. And so
10
was our
seconds.
former mayor. So we had a love, were you there?
Sorry, that was 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. Anyway, it was a lovely occasion and we raised more money than they actually intended to. Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else for public recognition? Yes, let's keep going in the room.
I'm so nervous. Hello, my name is Zita Bennett, and I've been a resident of Bremerton for 41 years. I'm concerned that our city has strayed from the path of equality. Our city has dropped the Pledge of Allegiance that states we are one nation under God, and it has welcomed Krampus. These are symbolic gestures that our city has kicked God out and invited the devil in. My husband and I are both of German descent, and neither of our families deemed it worthy to pass the Bavarian tradition down to us. But I've been reading the history, and I learned that this tradition has morphed so much that now Krampus is trying to take over Santa's job. Eric Morley, a promoter, posted on Facebook, and I quote, "There were so many kids who had fun with Krampus. Some gifted bells, notes, and hand-drawn pictures to Krampus. They weren't afraid because they knew they'd been nice, and Krampus had a bell to gift them," end quote. Krampus is an evil character. He is like a devil. He is nothing like the character in Beauty and the Beast. The Beast is a human that has been cursed, but still, there is still hope for him. What is offensive to members of my family who own a business downtown is that Krampus will enter their business without being invited in. It is one thing to have to live with the suffering and evil that is all around us and even invades our lives and the lives of our families. It is another and more dangerous thing to invite evil in. The devil is real. He is not our friend. He is a liar and a deceiver, a thief and a murderer. He incites hatred, envy, fear, and despair. He encourages lawlessness and chaos. God is more powerful than the devil. God loves us, but he will not force us to love him. Some of us who have come from very humble, even poor beginnings, have experienced what God has done in our lives. And no one can take away our peace and our joy, no matter what suffering and evil comes our way. It is my hope that Mayor Wheeler and our city council will change its mind about making Bremerton a primary destination for celebrating the evil character of Krampus. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comment. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michaela Prementine. I'm a resident of District 6. I come here personally. First, I want to thank Public Works. I called them literally this afternoon. They showed up right after, so solid response time today. And then I wanted to ask who I could talk to with the city if there's a planning department. I've been working with some engineers down at the shipyard, and we're trying to design a plan to facilitate traffic through Gorst and some things. And we wanted to know what the city's plans were with that. I know it's kind of back and forth with the Navy. And we get a lot of turnover, but we would like to help with all that we can. And then on another note that affects me more personally, I have a public right-of-way behind my residence, and the city's decided that it is in fact public, and the Bremerton police is responsible for ticketing parking violations there. But I have kind of an ongoing issue with repeat offenders with that, and they can't tow. And I talked to the police department, and they cite that the city will not authorize them to tow. So I would love to have permission to do that so that I can park in my driveway and charge my electric car. Because it does cost me like two tanks worth of gas every month when normally I plug in and it's like $5 a month. So I would really appreciate if we could do something about that. Also, I think that anybody in the city has the right to believe whatever they want, like symbology or whatever aside. Like, I'm an atheist. Like, I know plenty of people in the city that are Jewish or agnostic or whatever else. So like, as long as people are doing good things and they care about each other, like, I'm cool with whatever. So yep, that's my 2 cents for today.
Thank you for your comments. And Mayor Wheeler, did you want to respond the best way she can get the best contacts for her for those questions?
Yeah, just email me and I'll get you an update on the work already underway. And it's called the Gorst Coalition, and it is a coalition of local governments, tribe, nonprofits, business leaders who are working on, and actually we just met yesterday. I'll update you on all of that.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. All right. Anybody else for public recognition? We'll continue in the room here.
Good evening, City Council members, President, as well as our Mayor. My name is Akuye Karen Vargas, and I just wanted to talk about what's our way forward concerning our homeless population on the 7th, because I think that we have a way forward if we come together to be able to look at some of the solutions and get some of the resources. I understand that the hazards there has now become public health and safety with the bathroom issues, feces everywhere. We really need to address these issues. And then the weather is very concerning. We've had a loss of life there. How will we move forward to address the issue? And I understand that we have some projects that are on the table, but I think this needs to be put on an emergency, where we address this immediately and we not allow it to continue to move in a direction that is only devastating for all of our community members and those that are homeless as well. So as we begin to move forward, I think the conversations have to be made. How will we do this work and how will we do it collectively? And how will we unify our community? Because there is enough resources within Kitsap County. I've heard from those that are down there that are homeless, that they're sending all the homeless down from Port Orchard, from Silverdale, from other surrounding areas. And that's very concerning that they would say, come to Bremerton and have this problem seated here in our community, in the Bremerton community. So some of the things that I think that we should look at is what will we do? How will we work with our health district to address it? because we know it's more than just homelessness. We know we have to deal with the mental health issues. We know we have to deal with the drug and alcohol use as well. How are we working in a collective way? I understand that we're doing beautification projects, but the beautification projects must start with us and start with humanity. It starts with how we help our community, those that live in our community, those that are most vulnerable and marginalized in our community. What will that look like for us as we move forward? And we talk about protecting and keeping our community safe. Well, this is an initiative that I think all of us need to be attentive to. And so as we go forward and talk about how do we deal with helping our community become health and wellness, and what does that look like for us as a community when we talk about the health and safety and well-being of all of our citizens? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. One more in the room and then we'll go online.
Hello, Council, hello, Mr. Mayor and staff. My name is Joe Walter, West Bremerton. I missed the study session last week, and before this meeting, I thought, okay, I'll cram. And I started to watch the meeting, and I got about 30 minutes into it and realized, oh, I was watching from 2 weeks previous. So I don't know if you addressed or what your conversation was like around the camping ordinance. So I'll just add some things that I haven't already said. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your ongoing or your promise of making a shelter space a priority. I wish you would share more of what your plans are. And again, thank you to Eric Younger for talking so clearly in terms of treating folks as human beings. There was someone said that we had a failed history with porta potties, and that's why we can't get anybody to bring them down there. That's not true. There've been incidents, but I can't think of the name of the company, but definitely, yes, they will bring porta potties down there and deal with them, the hygiene issues professionally. We need to put a little extra money in for vandalism insurance. They're willing, it's not, and they know the neighborhood where we would be putting them. I am concerned right now that my intention was after the dramatic display of a portable septic tank last time, that I'd bring a whole bunch of people and just really make a big fuss about we need toilets down there. But in the meantime, we've got 4 toilets down there, and I'm not sure that you're aware, but I love it and I'm appalled at the same time. Because we have, they're 4 tents, they stand narrow and tall enough to stand in. They've got 5-gallon plastic joint compound buckets with a toilet seat on top of it and lined with plastic bags in order to pick up the waste. And now we are training volunteers to be able to clean these up and dispose of this waste hygienically, but I don't think it's the place of volunteers to do that. And I don't think it's sustainable. As grateful as I am to the volunteers that are doing it, I would like for the city to move forward with a professional porta potty plan. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. All right, let's go online and take a few and then we'll go back in the room. Justin from Washington, please go ahead.
Hi, Justin. I'm from Manette. I wanted to talk about also the homeless population. I had heard that they had some porta potties down there, and I recently went down there and talked to a few folks, and I was also the same way, really glad that they have something, but I was appalled when I heard that they were makeshift. And I feel that's that's really, really a letdown from Bremerton. We can get porta potties down there. We can do that professionally. We can, we can make it happen. We just have to do it. The same with the camping ordinance. I'm very appalled last week that you guys did not vote to strike it down, that you're waiting to get everything in a row for when it is gone. No, it just needs to be gone right now. That's all it needs. And I'm glad that some of the council members also voiced that concern that it should just be gone. You can work on, if you want to do Lakewood, if you want to do Port Orchard, or however they want to do it. How about we do it our way? This is our problem, Bremerton's problem. And there's a number of solutions. We don't have to keep looking at other cities to do what we need to get done in our city, because we can look and see what the problem is, not how they dealt with it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up online, let's go to Joanna Hayes.
Hello, this is Joey Hayes. I'm a member of Kitsap E-Race's housing team. I have been attending city council and study sessions for a number of weeks. I'm going to start with something other than homelessness. I am a Jewish person, and I would hope as Americans that we would remember that America does not have a national religion and that not everyone believes the same way. And if we want to be able, personally, to be able to worship whoever we worship, or to not worship anyone or anything, that we should also leave others alone who are doing just that. I think we're moving a little bit in a bit of a fairy tale direction with some of that. I have a 6-year-old and I haven't seen anything about Krampus during Christmas with kids giving him bells and stuff. So that one was news to me. And on that note, at Kitsap E-Race and a lot of the other people who are boots on the ground going down to MLK Way, these aren't simple solutions. You don't fix a problem like the encampment on MLK Way by individual citizens taking people into their houses when they may not have the resources to address their problem. The space in said homes. Most of us are not wealthy. I don't know that any of us are. This is a complex problem with a complex solution. Platitudes will get us nowhere. Today, I went to the Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition, and President Coughlin, you were there too. And we had a man who came and gave us a presentation on pallet shelters, who said that these can be built in a matter of weeks. And I really think that that is something we should pursue, because we need a solution sooner rather than later. And I think you decided at last week's study session that what we do for an authorized camping site is separate from what the legislation is going to be. So that we have that one problem of writing or revoking this law. And then we have the other problem of what are we going to actually do to address this. And I think at the end of last study session, you can't come to a pretty simple conclusion on what an ordinance might say. I would like to see the ordinance just revoked, but I can also work with you to make it a not harmful. Appreciate how the council has been.
So sorry, that's 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
So much for your comments. Continue online. Next up, Marwan Cameron.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor. So glad to be with you this evening. I wanted to speak tonight in public recognition and call out 3 people from the Rock the Block team: Kelsey Stedman, Kimmy Sibbons, and Dawn Michelle. These 3 folks have been working not connected to their organizations, but as individuals spending time and money out of their own pocket in excessive heat to spend time on ML King and support those folks down there. As Joe was saying, there are some portable toilets down there. And everyone from Rock the Block and everyone else that's in support of porta potties down there want those folks to have porta potties. But folks are tired of waiting for someone to have the dignity to use the restroom in privacy. For others to be protected, children, homeowners, and renters to not have to see private parts and to watch one of the most intimate things that a person does multiple times a day. I really just want to applaud them for coming up with a solution. I'm actually one of those people that trained on how to change that porta potty with the tie and cufflinks. It's super easy to do. And they're so grateful down there. But that's not all that's happening down there. Folks have it misunderstood that, oh, we're just down there feeding folks. But it's so much more. Spending time with people, sitting in their tents, finding out what their concerns are, what are their issues, listening to their stories. My agency took someone to treatment who wanted to get off drugs and get off the street. It was a 2-hour ride, which is about a $200-something bill for our agency that we ate up. We had to go back down and get him because that agency was pretty terrible to him. You have regular citizens here in Bremerton that are doing some remarkable things. And I just want you to know that we're all in this together, but they are down treating wounds on hands, feet, legs, arms. Like I said, spending time with people, taking folks to treatment. They have personal relationships with the people that are down there. And while we're waiting for City Council and for the mayor to figure out what's going to happen, we know that this isn't going to happen overnight. Understand that there are some citizens that are really stepping up. And I just wanted y'all to know that this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right, next up, we'll go to Kelsey S.
Hi, this is Kelsey Stedman. I didn't purposefully mean to follow Marwan. Marwan, thank you so much for the shout out, and you two have been doing great work. I wanted to address some of the things people have been bringing up. Marwan's right, and as some other people have shared, the solution is not 5-gallon buckets for people to use. It was an interim, we need to do something, which requires someone going every other day and emptying them. We have reached out to multiple agencies that own property on MLK, and none of them have been spoken to by anyone about their willingness to house a porta potty on their property if there's not city property for it to be on. And we have 2 agencies that have identified they'd be willing to enter in a conversation. So my question for council tonight is, how does an agency access that money? It would likely still be under a citizen's name because these agencies aren't willing to take on liability unless the city is willing to do that. So how do we have a conversation about quickly entering into a contract to get porta potties on property that has been offered by these agencies? And we have a porta potty company as well that is willing to put the porta potty there. It's $900 if it gets ruined to the point of not being able to be used. The reason a porta potty failed behind Salvation Army years ago is no sharps container was placed in there. We've received permission to bolt a sharps container to the porta potty. Those 5-gallon buckets are treated very respectfully. We haven't found one sharp in them. And the unfortunate silver lining of fentanyl use is there's fewer sharps overall as people are smoking and not injecting. There was 1 bag of sharps next to 1 porta potty. We put a sharps container in there and it's used. So I just wanted to address the reason that a porta potty hadn't worked in the past. There's very simple ways to rectify that. And even the 5-gallon buckets are being treated respectfully. So how do we quickly get the funds to implement a porta potty?
I'm going to defer to the mayor here to answer that. It's my understanding the city can we routinely enter contracts with agencies that involve obviously giving the money in return for goods and services, but Mayor, if you want to address that.
Yeah, just Kelsey, have the property owner email me. So we will always be willing to entertain an offer or a proposal. That's never ever not been an option for us. So just email, we'll start the dialogue and see what the property owner is thinking about.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Kelsey, for your comments.
Okay.
All right, next up, we'll go to Jocelyn.
This is Jocelyn. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Jocelyn. I'm with the Bremerton Prayer Walk, and I also do some Rock the Block events. And I just wanted to, first of all, I listened to last week's study session, and I'm sorry I was driving at the time that I listened to it. So I didn't write down everyone's names, but I just wanted to applaud you guys for recognizing the fact that we do need to have more space because, you know, as we talk about these individuals down on Martin Luther King Way, these are sons, these are daughters, these are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. And I would encourage anyone to come down and any time with us and just hear some of the stories. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but all of them, they all show that there's becoming a willingness, and these individuals have hope again. The Rock the Block women that Marwan shouted out earlier, they are absolute warriors. And it's really incredible. I would also encourage you guys just to strike the law, because as you're looking at all these other ordinances from all these different jurisdictions, they still haven't been challenged. And we have clear direction as to how the courts view this type of thing. So instead of starting with maybe a flawed outlook, let's look at something more beneficial to everyone other than this camping ordinance. And we can look at different things, different jurisdictions that I believe are doing it right. You have a lot of Canadian municipalities up there that are doing it right. And so I would really encourage us to take, as the individual from Manette said earlier, let's take a different approach. Let's be different. Let's not copy these other counties. Let's not copy these other jurisdictions. Let's set ourselves apart as the city of Bremerton is. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, Molly Brooks, please go ahead. Molly.
Hi. I'm Molly Brooks. I'm a member of Kitsap Erase Coalition's Housing and Homelessness team. I was at the Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition meeting earlier today, and they had a very good, I think this has been brought up, but they had a very good presentation on basically a tiny home model that I really think should be looked at for an option. So I really do hope you look at that. I just wanted to encourage you that as you are looking at what to do about this ordinance, that you really make sure you come up with a place for people to go, because they really need a place to go. The situation they're living in right now isn't tenable, and we're trying to do things to make it better. Rock the Block has been amazing. I was there the other day, and what they have set up is, we really have some people who are doing some great things, but we really need to find some solutions, and beyond that, find some more permanent solutions, more housing for people to move into after that. Just to get people off the streets, because everyone should have somewhere to live. That should be a basic human right, to have somewhere to live. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And last online, Christy Lyson, and then we'll go back in the room.
Good evening. I don't know when my hand's raised. I want to echo a lot of what you've already heard. That I also am asking that you strike down the camping ban ordinance completely and start over rather than trying to adopt ordinances that other cities and counties have adopted that are not proven. We haven't seen positive outcomes from any of those ordinances. And so I don't know why we would adopt something that we don't know is effective and works. Secondly, the work that the Rock the Block warriors are doing down on MLK is beyond admirable. They are doing the work our city should be doing. I'm just completely dumbfounded why my city government is okay with the community members carrying the burden of caring for our most vulnerable citizens. And, you know, they're not just feeding people, they are, you know, as other people have said, providing toileting facilities that we have asked for the past year. $10,000 was set aside to fund it. And there's been zero efforts by the government, the city government to, I guess the administration is supposedly responsible, has not done one darn thing to do anything to put that money to work to help with toilet facilities for the folks down there. And it's not okay. They're also we have nurses doing wound care, which is a huge issue for our folks down there. You know, just taking care of all their needs. And that is not right. That shouldn't be put on just, you know, the community to come and do the work that we're paying you our taxes dollars to do. I'm just completely dumbfounded that you guys are okay with that. And not, you know, taking steps. The county has the HEART program, and they serve all the unhoused. They do outreach for all the unhoused in the county and everything except Bremerton. Why don't we have the same program for Bremerton? I mean, it's just, so we're just left without, and the community members are funding the toilet, you know, to maintain the toilet facilities down there, you know, putting in money to get the food to feed the folks down there. It's I don't get it. I expect more from our city government, and I urge you, dare you, encourage you to, you know, go with the people that are doing the outreach down there, and see for yourselves. Talk to the people yourselves.
So sorry to have to cut you off, but thank you for your comments. All right, let's see. Anybody else in the room for public recognition? Yes, please go ahead.
Jade Mabalowski, longtime Bremerton resident. I've talked about the need for toilets for over 2 years, so there's nothing I can add on it. It's needed. We have the money. Just put them in. A couple other things I wanted to talk about is I attended the Bremerton Ferry Coalition meeting last night, and they were upset because a lot of the key players that they need responses from have not responded as to whether or not they're going to attend their forum next month. They said most of the government officials who are with them have said they'd be there, but they need other players to come and help them. And I think really the county should consider calling a public transportation emergency in the entire county, because there's not one ferry terminal community that is happy right now, even Bainbridge. The last thing I wanted to talk about is Perry and 11th project. It's been awesome for some of the businesses. You know, the contractor was in and out in 6 weeks. There's also at least one business that has been impacted for almost a year, and that is just poor planning. and poor management, and nothing else can be said about that. The school in that area has been impacted. There's not even temporary crosswalks for children to get to the school. The residents in that area that hasn't been completed, but yet was one of the first impacted, is tired of the dirt and the noise. You know, and school's starting up again soon, and they're gonna close down the project for Manette Fest and then reopen it, so it's gonna add another week or two of misery for a lot of people. So I'm glad that the other businesses were so lucky to have minor impacts, but it's not the case for all of them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Roy Runyon, District 6, Bremerton. Couple items I want to follow up. Several council meetings ago, I suggested that we adopt a Taiwanese sister city. A couple members, council members were interested. I did some legwork on that, and I actually contacted the Taiwanese don't have embassies or consulates because we don't officially recognize them as a sovereign nation, as you may know. But they do have these liaison offices, including one in Seattle. So I've been corresponding with Mr. Hu, Tony Hu, who is one of their liaison representatives. And so there are several cities, municipalities that may be candidates for us. And I'll follow up with an email to the council so that you can pursue it, and I can help in any way you'd like. They have a different way of organizing their cities than we do. One of these cities is actually the port for New Taipei City. So it's not independent. So you guys would have to decide what you want to do with that. But so that was just a follow up. I also want to follow up on Proposition 1, the public safety levy. I was surprised that it failed by at least 4 percentage points, very decisive. I have a question for the council members. This is rhetorical. How out of touch are you with your constituents? You obviously haven't communicated adequately with your constituents to know what their concerns are regarding taxes, public safety, government accountability, and these types of issues. So I encourage you to get out more. I know it's a difficult thing. I've been in your shoes. People don't come to the meetings. They don't contact you. The silent majority obviously have spoken through the ballot. The other thing I pondered, this was after I wrote the against statement that appeared in the pamphlet. I've come to realize that what's happened the last several years where, quote, progressive politicians, prosecutors, and judges have lowered the bar as far as accountability for criminal activity. And the effect of that has been to enable and empower criminals. The crime rate goes up. Government says we need more resources to fight crime. We need more money to hire more police officers. It's a scam. It's a scam. You know, you've got politicians and bureaucrats who've taken policy positions who have enabled that situation to occur. And then you tell us we need more money, more tax dollars. Think about that. What is your responsibility? And it's not mainly you folks, but it's the legislature. But you have a direct conduit to the legislature. So think about that. I think that was the result you saw was part of that. And lastly, ADUs. 2 cities in our state have allowed park model RV homes to be used as ADUs. Port Angeles and Port Townsend. I just found that out today, as a matter of fact, and I'm going to verify that and provide that. It'd be a great amendment to our code regarding ADUs, and that would make it a lot more affordable. And if you believe in a solution to affordable housing, that's one of them. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments, and would encourage definitely submitting to the Bremerton comp plan at bremerton2044.com. Thank you. All right, yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Mike Simpson. I live in District 6. Well, first, I'd like to thank the council for taking the time to put the consideration forward and get this legislation right. Ham-fisting the legislation through about the camping ordinance, which is really an anti-vagrancy ordinance. Throwing it out is just not the right thing to do. Rethinking it and making it work so that it lives within our constitutional limitations is the right answer. And again, government isn't the solution to our problems. A lot of times it causes these things. And it's the people that are out on the streets that are advocating to fix these problems that are the ones who are going to do the most good and actually fix the problems. They're the ones who want to get involved and do things. They do things through their social organizations, through their churches, through their different interactions, and they're the ones that will actually fix this. Government can set up an environment that enables that sort of behavior rather than an environment that enables lawlessness and homelessness. And that's what the council needs to work towards. And I think that the council is doing a good job at doing that. I'd love to see it happen faster, but life doesn't happen at the speed of government. And speaking of our levy, it's unfortunate that our public safety levy appears to be failing. We want more cops and more firefighters. I posed the question before when I came before the council and asked if you would consider regionalizing our fire department. We had a study that went forward about a dozen years ago that showed us that we would have about $500,000 in perpetuity each year of savings to the city. Now, this isn't just a savings to the city. This is actually a savings for our taxpayers. And this would allow us to get more firefighters in our trucks rather than two firefighters per trucks. And when there's another fire on Snyder that involves two houses, and I do have to give the chief props. We had a great response time to the two duplexes that burned. I'm glad that our firefighters were on scene, but I'm also glad that we had other firefighters from other agencies that showed up to help out because it was a huge involved mess. I'd also like to thank BPD. They've been doing a lot of phenomenal things. A lot of times they get kicked in the teeth, and it's unfortunate. But our records department seems to have some very professional folks who truly believe in customer service, and they need to be publicly applauded. Now we have a lobbyist that works. We have 3 lobbyists that work for us. Why are we not using our lobbyists to advocate to lower the intake standards for our mental health? If we can lower the intake standards, we can help some of these folks that are stuck on the streets that can't get the help that they need. And this is one of the things that we can advocate for. And our conference center has restrooms that we can always use. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else online or in the room for public recognition? Yes, it's good to go in the room here, and then we'll go back online. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Stein, and I'm the Executive Director for the Washington State Science and Engineering Fair, and also the Regional Director for Washington State's Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. And we've had a lot of news tonight and a lot of updates, and I would like to bring a piece of good news, and that is twofold. One is that the United States Patent and Trademark Office last year attended our Washington State Science and Engineering Fair, and they have agreed to come back. They enjoyed our city, they enjoyed our residents, they enjoyed our students, and they are bringing their team back. That brings national recognition to Bremerton. That's a good thing. And it certainly promotes our students and our schools and our school district. My second piece of good news is the best kept secret that I'm announcing publicly tonight. And that's more than a year ago, our board worked and we put in an application, and we have been accepted as only one of 11 entities nationwide, and the first science fair ever, that's going to connect next April 5 and 6 during our fair with the International Space Station. We will be live in what they call real time, and our students, our judges, our participants, our public will be able to, we're going to stop the entire fair during that window of opportunity, and we are going to bring them all into the Bremerton High School gymnasium, auditorium, and the big 40 by 60 foot screen. We're going to throw it up. You're going to be able to see astronauts and talk to astronauts in space. That is something that will bring international glory to our city and to our school district, and certainly to everyone around us. And it would not happen if it wasn't for Mayor Wheeler and our city council and our administrators who put up with me dearly, and all of the people. And I can tell you that our new superintendent, I hope to be able to speak with him soon. The principal of Bremerton High School is aware, and Dr. Lavelle, our ESD super, is on board as well. And so we're very excited. So April 5 and 6, 2024, I need you to make sure you mark your calendars and come and join us in space. It's going to be something worthwhile. And I really, really appreciate the support of our community to make this happen. Bremerton's important. Our kids are important. I invite all of you to come to the fair. I invite our public to come to the fair and talk to the United States Patent and Trademark Office and see an astronaut in space. And a big shout out to our local hams groups without their radio expertise and support, because they're the ones who are networking in order to make this all happen. Thank you so much. I do have one more, but I'm going to keep it until I get it confirmed. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for your comments. Let's go back online to Jim Klein. Mr. Klein, if you can hear us, please go ahead. Let's see if you can hear us. We can't hear you yet. Try asking you to unmute one more time here. Let's see if that works. Let's not, if we can't hear you, Mr. Klein, let me just see if there's anybody else for public recognition in the meantime. I think that's everybody. We'll give it 10 more seconds here to see if Mr. Klein's able to connect. All right, I'm so sorry, Mr. Klein, we can't hear you. So I definitely encourage you though to write in with any comments to the city council email, and we'll make sure that council and mayor get them. All right, seeing nobody else for public recognition, I'll go ahead and close public recognition, and we will go to the one general business item that we do have tonight.
General business item, let's see, 6A would be resolution number 3364 to adopt the City of Bremerton Stormwater Comprehensive Plan update. Our presenter tonight is Utility Manager Chance Berthium.
Welcome, Mr. Berthium.
Good evening, council. We have a presentation we put together that our friend Hans is going to turn on and start going through the slides. All right, there we go. So every 6 years, the city of Bremerton, all stormwater utilities are supposed to create a stormwater comprehensive plan. Our last plan was done in 2008, but at the same time, we did another one in 2016 that really it was never adopted, but it was been the guiding document that we've used for the last few years. So this is the next one in sequence that was actually a requirement as part of the stormwater permit. So we assembled a team to develop this. One of our team members is Phil Struck from Struck Environmental. He's a biologist, planner, watershed planner. He's a wetlands person. He's been around for a very long time, 30 plus years around the city, working with us on various projects. He's completed the Kitsap County Storm and Surface Water Management Plan, as well as the Paulsbo Stormwater Comp Plan. And he is very good at what he does. Part of the team is city staff, as we have Sarah Wilson, who is a master's degree in watershed management. She works for me in the stormwater group, and together we worked with our engineer Gunnar Fredrickson, who's a PE as well as a licensed surveyor. So he's really knowledgeable of all of our land issues within this. So we had a pretty good group of people putting this together. Next slide, please. So we have our purpose and objectives. Essentially, we need to have a plan. It runs our utility. It tells us which direction we're going to go with particular items. Specifically, we have the MPDS permit that is very prescriptive as far as our requirements go. And that drives an awful lot of what it is that we do. The actual permit has specific items that we need to do that involve public education outreach, stormwater planning, public involvement and participation, MS4 mapping and documentation, which is completed by our staff. This is discharge detection and elimination, controlling runoff from new development, redevelopments, and operation and maintenance, as well as a new program called Source Control, where we actually go out and visit businesses, individual properties that have businesses that have a potential to pollute, have pollutants on their site that need to be managed correctly. So we work with them pretty frequently to help them out. This is the help out phase. We're not in the phase of forcing anybody to do anything, but we're working to educate and get them on board. So essentially, the plan identifies our program needs, priorities, and budgets for a 6-year period. Like I said, this has taken a long time to get to this point. We started this in 2016, and we have been pretty focused on getting it done. Our objectives, of course, reduce flooding, reduce discharge of pollutants, and comply with the stormwater permit, which again is the environmental protection component of the plan. This time we developed a 6-year and a 20-year CIP, and we decided for the first time in all of the plans that have been done is to identify as many projects as we possibly can and then rank them based on a criteria that was established from reviewing other agencies, cities, counties, places within Washington State, Puget Sound specifically, so that we would have a consistent program. It is a little bit confusing to read, but if you look at leaning heavily towards environmental protection, which is where a lot of our projects ultimately. Again, MPDS permit requirements, they drive most everything, which is to protect stormwater from pollutants, and we spend a lot of time doing that. Rates and revenues, our capital improvement plan defines what our rates and revenues are. If we have needs for extra funding to do projects that are required by the permit, we need revenue to basically afford to do that project. I lean heavily on grants. I've been very successful working on a relationship with Ecology, and they really respect Bremerton. They see us as a leader in Kitsap County and the area in general. Next slide. So the permit drives the compliance program requirements. But also with the compliance comes staffing needs. So we looked at these issues as well as the capital project delivery. Our 6-year CIP has a $29 million with 31 projects, and 30% of them are grants. The cost is grants, which is a good deal. I fight a flooding problem on Eagle and Dib that's been around for 30 plus years, and we're almost done with that project. So hats off to Gunnar Fredrickson for getting that thing going and keeping it alive. He's done a very good job in meeting the regulatory requirements. Part of the comp plan, we looked at the financial portion, and we just recently had a FCS working on a rate study for all of the utility rates, and they did a pretty good job. We ended up waiting to get the plan to this point as a part of the rate study, because we wanted to get good numbers. We wanted this to be fairly accurate so that our rates are in line with what it is that the study showed. Next slide, please. So this is a rundown of what we have in the city. Catch basin cleaning 4,500 plus, or closer, getting closer to very close to 5,000. Our system is expanding at breakneck speeds through new development. Conveyance piping, sweeping, we get 150 miles plus per year. But we're staying up here two times a year. We do it more than that. Different areas, different priorities, different pollutant loadings. All of that is considered in our sweeping program. So we have focused areas along the waterfront and the sensitive water bodies like Oyster and Oshkosh Bay, and areas where we have our source control program that just started at the beginning of this year. Our inspector's been doing a wonderful job. He's getting in talking with the property owners, and doing a pretty good job of getting people on board. We are going to have some BMC updates coming to support that program. Just because finding we need that. Coordinate with the Port of Bremerton. We're changeover in management there actually allowed us to really start developing a good relationship with Port, and we've been meeting Port, talk about stormwater as well as other issues. And then we just recently completed a stormwater management action plan, and that's a stormwater system evaluation based on watershed pollutant loading into waters around us. It included Kitsap Lake, Oyster and Ostrich Bay, Fort Washington, Narrows, Sinclair, and Dyes Inlet. And we identified the priority basins, and with that, we identified some retrofits that are grant eligible that we're going to move forward to get constructed. And that's part of our SMAP, which can be found online under the stormwater program. We have a pretty good story map that you can see that really explains that. Slide. This is essentially a breakdown of our numbers for what it is. We have our annual budget's about $5.2 billion for operation and maintenance. Our capital projects, it just depends. It varies between 5.3 to $12 million, depending on how many grants we have, how many projects, what our capacity is. It's a variable, and it changes pretty much every year. We redo our CIP based on funding availability and staff capacity. So our goals are to, of course, balance the budget. So again, we have fixed rates or fixed needs that we have to do for the permit. We have areas where we need to address issues that pop up, such as flooding, and we take those areas seriously. And as part of a ranking system, that is the highest scoring issue that will come up in our ranking. And then we have our rates are based on the study done by FCS. And of course, we maximize grants. I love grants. They really help us out. Next slide. All right, so this is what we have for updates codes for source control, low impact development, private facilities, O&M. And these were just basically explaining what is required to be done by the permit. We have a new permit coming out in August of 2024. The draft just came out today. So I got an email and it's available to review, and it is a draft of the final plan for the permits. So we can look at that and see what's going to be involved. Have to make some changes, of course, because every permit is a little bit onerous, a little bit more onerous than what the one before. Next slide. This was our schedule for getting the plan updated in the Public Education Act, which was posting it online for review on May 2nd, along with the SEPA. We kept it open until August 4th, and then we took what comments we had, which were a few. A couple of residents I talked to and specifically encouraged them to talk to us and get the complaints or issues on the record, and that was the Rainier Properties. I had a conversation with the property owner and say, talk to your neighbors, get the information to us so that we can address the issue. Hope to get this completed this month in August so we can focus on implementing the plan, some other projects that we have to do. Next slide. I think this is where I have questions or comments, but I have a whole other series of slides that address the comments that were presented that address them specifically. And for that, I have Phil Struck here to talk about those. He is the consultant that we hired to develop the plan, help us develop the plan. He worked with us very closely, has been a great resource. Like I said, he's done other comp plans for like Kitsap County, the city of Paulsville. He's currently working on a couple of other plans other than ours, but yeah. Biologist, I'll let you explain to yourself. You can tell us who you are, Phil. That'd be great.
Thanks, Chance. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Phil Struck from Struck Environmental, and I've been working with Chance and the city team for the last couple of years on the comp plan. My background is really, I'm kind of a public works professional, been involved in municipal public works for 30 some odd years, primarily in the areas of stormwater and environmental resources, but I also have a background in wastewater transportation, which have some nexus with stormwater as well. So as Chance mentioned, I've been involved in a number of planning efforts for other jurisdictions in the county, Kitsap County's recent stormwater comp plan update, as well as the city of Paulsbo. So, and a number of other projects around the region. So I've got some decent background in this. And what I've got here for you tonight is a summary of the comments that were received from study session and how we've addressed those, as well as a little bit of information on our thought process in terms of addressing the comments. Could I have the next slide, please? Here's just a very quick overview of the comments. There were some comments about wetlands and the significance of those in terms of the stormwater plan, comment about rain gardens, swales, treatment wetlands, and then a couple of comments about permit conditions that will be in the new permit 2024-2029 on tree retention, fish-bearing streams, and some opportunistic treatment. There were also some supplemental comments that came in about Wright Creek in particular and how that was or was not addressed in SEPA, and some comments about scoring of projects, in particular the Rainier Avenue flooding project. Next slide, please. So wetlands, what we've done is we added a new map with what was the best available information, which is essentially the city county GIS. I'll show you that map in a minute. We did, I think, depict the Wright Creek wetland complex as it's generally shown in those databases. We also added a new section and talked a little bit about wetland protection under the city's stormwater code. Now that occurs at a specific project level. So when a project's proposed, as you all know, it has to meet the development code, and stormwater is a big part of that. The stormwater protections are specified under the state stormwater manual, which has been adopted by the city, and they relate primarily to treating the water before it goes into the wetland and making sure that the hydrology of the wetland is maintained so its functions can continue. Now, those protections apply to all wetlands, whether they're currently mapped or not. So if there's a wetland that's not shown on the current GIS layer, but there's an indication it's there and it comes up during development review, then it gets addressed with those new protections. So currently, this was our thought process. The wetland protection, but beyond those BMPs that are required under code, is not part of the city's current stormwater management program. And they're primarily issues that are addressed under land use under the critical area ordinance. So stormwater is really addressing the water going into the wetland, but is not in a lot of ways addressing the wetland itself, other than making sure that the hydrology is maintained. Now, wetland restoration and additional protection could be considered, I think, as part of the city's CIP at specific locations, but I think that would require probably a separate study to really identify all the wetlands and then prioritize those that need protection so that there's some basis for investing city resources in those protection measures. Next slide, please. Here's the map that we did. And I think we got the red circle is the Wright Creek wetland complex, which is generally up there by I think it's the Wright Creek Business Park, Pendergrass Park area. And I think that's the one that maybe was highlighted as being particular concern. So that's what's depicted in the current databases and now shown in the comp plan. Next slide, please. So the other issues, I'll just click through these very quickly. We added a new section on the rain garden program with the conservation district, which has just been approved, incidentally. We did take a look at the inventory of rain gardens. Now, the inventory didn't change, and I want to just acknowledge that there's more swales and rain gardens out there than what is shown in the comp plan, but those are facilities that are not owned by the city, that the city's not responsible for maintaining, so they weren't included in that inventory. We added text about how BMPs are evaluated as part of the CIP and basin-specific planning, including stormwater parks, stormwater treatment, wetlands. That also applies to this opportunistic BMP issue that's associated with the upcoming permit. Now, tree retention is a potential new permit requirement, and it has a lot of overlap with land use code. We won't really know for sure what the requirements are until mid-24 when the new permit is issued, and felt it was prudent to acknowledge those issues, but maybe defer making specific recommendations until the actual requirement is known. So we mentioned that in the updated, in the plan modifications. Regarding shading of fish-bearing streams, usually a stream buffer regulatory issue, not stormwater. But just an acknowledgement that native vegetation plantings are part of all the city's fish passage and habitat related projects. So, they're well aware of that BMP and the need to, provide those sort of benefits for the stream corridor. Next slide, please. Here's some additional comments that came up. Wright Creek not included in SEPA. Well, the SEPA was more of a programmatic evaluation, not site specific. And that really kind of reflects the general nature of the plan, which I think in my experience is pretty typical for a utility functional plan. Analysis of individual sites is really kind of outside the scope of a comprehensive plan. And that occurs as part of, basin planning or CIP analysis or specific projects. And the comp plan talks about all the planning studies that are programmed into the CIP that will include that sort of analysis. Rainier Avenue flooding used the standard ranking system that are used for all city CIP, stormwater CIP. There's 20 separate criteria. They're identified in the comp plan, covering a full range of flooding, water quality, environmental, strategic benefit. Pretty comprehensive approach, and it's applied to all projects equally. The general project scoring and ranking for flood-prone projects uses the same ranking system and uses the best available information that the city has, and it's updated annually, if not more frequently, as better information and data is available. So those are kind of our thinking in response to the new comments that came in. Next slide, please. So quick summary. In my experience, I think the existing plan is very consistent with a typical stormwater utility comprehensive plan in terms of scope and detail. In fact, in some areas, I think it's a bit above a typical plan. It is a program level document, really kind of focused on the regulatory requirements, as Chance mentioned, which is really a driver for staffing, costs, and revenue. And I know that you guys just dealt with the revenue issues back in the end of 2022, and it is significant. The regulatory issues are causing costs to increase. In my estimation, I think wetlands and specific project priorities are best addressed maybe through the CIP process and not the comp plan. The CIP is really kind of a living program, gets updated each year. So it has a lot of built-in flexibility, while the comp plan is basically going to stay the same for the next 6 years until the next update is done. Been working on this for a couple of years. I think the adoption is needed within the relatively short term to support the comp plan, citywide comp plan process, which is underway, and the associated capital facilities plan, which needs the data in the comp plan to be incorporated into that CFP. Next slide. So that concludes my presentation on how we've been addressing the comments that were received. I'd be glad to answer any questions or provide additional information. And I just want to say that I've been around Kitsap County a long time, and I've enjoyed working on the plan. And I think it's a pretty good document that reflects a lot of practical engineering information, as well as a good environmental ethic. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. So I know we've had some discussions and debate about how to proceed with this, and we are ops the plan. One of the areas of discussion was having more rain gardens or rain parks or stormwater parks. We recently filled the stormwater engineer position with the lead engineer for the Manchester demonstration park. So he is our stormwater engineer. Because one of my goals has been to develop a good team of professionals that can run this program and give us some good results. So with our watershed planner, our engineer that's on board, myself, I've been doing this for a long time. I think we have some good, capable people on our team. And I do look forward to implementing some more parks of sorts. We have the Anderson Cove Park, the Lydia and James Walker Park. It's a demonstration stormwater park. And that will be considered as part of our future CIP development as our program moves forward. And then we also have the new permit requirements that we'll be addressing. So all of this is to me, it's a living document. It changes continuously. The CIP is what will change over time every year. As we have funding and capacity available, we address these small dollar, relatively small dollar, small system improvements that we can do quick contracts on to do some basic quick engineering and construction to relieve the flooding problem, like on Rainier. For example, like on Elizabeth and 13th. There's a couple of sites that are like that are relatively inexpensive, meaning under $500,000, but that's still a lot of money. And I realize that, but a lot of these other projects are multiple millions. So by comparison. Anyhow, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excellent, thank you. Let me ask if any member of the public wishes to comment on this item, in person or remote. Yeah.
Hi, Chance, how you doing?
Please go ahead.
Well, I'm going to give you a little history. Go back to 2001. We know what happened in September 2001 as a result. And since then, we have spent an estimated $1 trillion on anti-terrorism measures. Much of that money has been wasted on local law enforcement, giving local law enforcement military-grade hardware to combat terrorists that are popping up everywhere. We've done very little to harden our infrastructure. When I was on the council, I asked a city employee, not Chance, someone else, how safe our SCADA system was. SCADA, Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. And I was told, oh, we're isolated from the internet. There's no way anybody can hack in. I was also on the audit committee. We actually put some money to a white hat hacking company. And guess what? That wasn't true. We had a couple ports that were accessible to the outside world. We've had some high profile cases of utility systems being hacked. We know that hospitals have been subject to ransomware attacks.
Is this germane?
So, anyway, it is germane because my point is regarding the permit and the CIP is what and how does it address SCADA resilience, number one? How does it address physical protection of our facilities? It's nice to see that there's some fences now around pump stations and that type of thing. Regarding the rain gardens, also encouraging rainwater catchment for reuse on site for gardens and that types of things. So I thank you very much for listening and actually waiting for me to finish my speaking until you decide if it's germane or not. This is all germane. We are the ratepayers, we're the taxpayers. We will decide what's germane ultimately. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else for comment on this issue? Yes, please go ahead.
Hello. So I've lived in Bremerton. My name's Thomas. I've lived in Bremerton for 8 years. I don't really know how to do this, but I just had a question about one of the slides. It had inspections that were 20% per year and 50% per year. I just wanted to make sure that that's like, there's a goal to inspect 100% of everything in so many years instead of, because I have a lot of experience with DoD, and a lot of the time if the thing says 20%, they find the 20% that's the easiest to inspect and then just continue to inspect that 20% every time. So I just want to know if there was like anything built into your thing to make sure that 100% gets done in so many years.
So what's built in is the permit requires 20% inspections be completed every year over the 5-year period of the permit. So at the end of 5 years, you would inspected all of them. We do, inspect almost everything every 2 years as far as the private systems go. The source control, that's planning on having all of the sites inspected within the 5-year period, just because there's so many of them, and the inspections aren't just going out and looking, it's making the appointments, going out looking when they have the time, then all of the follow-up assistance and the checking back. It's pretty involved. And we have one person doing that, but we're doing good, I believe.
Yeah, any other member of the public wish to comment on this item? Just going to check that there's nobody online. Checking. Okay, seeing no other public comments, I'll go to the council for a motion. We're good now.
Move to approve resolution number 3364, adopting City of Bremerton 2022 through 2027 Stormwater Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're open for discussion. Councilman, we're good now. The floor is yours if you wish.
Thank you for your thorough presentation again, and for the follow-up to some of the questions we had. So I know that this is a lot of work, so we appreciate your time on that. I don't have any specific questions at this time. I know some other counselors may, so I'll let them have a chance. But again, thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dennehy.
Yes. Thank you, Council President. Yes, I also want to say thank you very much, both to the administration, your department, and the consultant, Phil, who's worked so heavily on this. This is if I'm understanding this correctly, this is a broad overview plan that is focusing on staffing, it's focusing on certain goals. And then there can be updates every year. I think you said the CIP updates every year. Can you explain that a little bit to me? Because the majority of the comments that we had come in were from North Rainier between 19th and 20th. And I just want to make sure that that's on the radar. I know you addressed it a little bit, but if you could go a little bit further, that'd be great.
Sure. The CIP, well, every year we write a stormwater management program plan. And that identifies everything we're going to do for the whole year as far as the regulatory permit requirements, so that we meet all of the goals of the permit. So that part is an annual thing. Now the CIP, we talk about it, we get that kind of geared up from June to August. We have it pretty well dialed in by the time September rolls around. With our budget process, it's very linked to that. So we look at what our estimated costs are, what our staffing level is. Engineers have a specific capacity. And then if we're rolling projects into transportation projects, which we do quite often, because there is a synchronicity to the two. So we fold all these pieces together to try to sequence them over the next year as much as we can. There's always surprises, and you get those in change orders or updates or expanded approvals. But all of that is presented to our group internally. And then ultimately that comes to council through the budget approval process. So we balance the budget with all of the projects. We have money that's used specifically for substandard mains or issues that pop up, or if a project ends up being a little short on money, we have funds usually available. So these small projects, they will get folded in as money and staff time or capacity is available. And that happens every year. We pick something up that's a priority. I do appreciate, we can't fix what we don't know about. You know, so I like input from the public. I really do. I appreciate that, because then we can address the issues. And both of these issues that I talked about at the 13th and Elizabeth and then on Rainier were because somebody called me. And so they called it in and we talked.
And could you give a little bit more information about the discussion you had with the property owner at North Rainier and any plans that there are to address that? I just don't want to leave those constituents hanging because it was the majority of the comments that we received.
Councilor Mockler has more details than I do, I think. I've really never heard nothing about the dollar amounts for any kind of damages because that I know. But the engineer, myself, walked the site. We looked at the actual locations of our storm. We figured out what we'd have to pick up and intercept. There are essentially two systems, one on the north end, one on the south end, because of the grade breaks north and south, so water will flow either way about the middle of the road between 19th and 20th. So two stubs up from up 19th and up 20th to intercept the water and have a catch basin installed about midway or about a quarter of the way up the street to get the Rainier issue that we're dealing with. So we threw an estimate at it of about $350,000. So we're working on evaluating when we can get that into the system. But as an interim fix, we put the berm in, we raise the edge, and we will monitor that through the winter to make sure that they're covered. And I asked the lady to give me a call if they ever have issues, because we will respond accordingly and make sure that it's taken care of.
Thank you. So just for my edification, it sounds like this is a high level document that's kind of for the next 6 years, but there's a chance for responding to needs every year that council can identify and fund. And there's already communications and some preliminary stopgaps being put in place for community members that have already let you all know about some issues that are going on. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks so much.
Councilmember Mucker. So sorry, she raised her hand earlier.
Okay, I'm going to move to postpone this to the study session coming up next week for two very simple reasons.
Okay,
Can I articulate them at this time?
No, I believe once you make the motion, we need to go for a second. Okay, so we have a motion to postpone this item to the next study session. Is there a second? We'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and second for discussion. All right, so now we're open for discussion on this motion to postpone to next study session. You have the floor, council member.
Thank you. Really, I'm trying to restrain my joy about the stormwater engineer. For two very specific reasons. One is the Red Creek wetlands is shown on the wetlands and hydric soil maps, but there are a number of maps in the stormwater comp plan simply for consistency's sake. And so that somebody who comes and looks at this in the future won't just say, oh, table figure 3.6 wetlands and hydric soils. That's just an anomaly. The second thing is the scoring is it is expressed for each criterion as a potential, as in when people say to you, you could save up to $1,000. There isn't a clear way for us to explain to our constituents why, for example, Rainier Avenue, which caused extensive damage to house and property on at least two properties, over 40,000 on one and 15 to 20,000 on the other. There isn't a way for me to explain to them why they are only received a ranking of 41, although I am very happy that they are ranked number 7 on the 20-year plan, even though they didn't make it onto the 6-year plan. I should stop now. I will do that.
No. I wanted to say that the 41 is the ranked score. 53 was the highest ranked score. So it put them at number 7 on the 20-year list. So it's not like they're 41st in the list first and whatnot. It's just the opposite.
No, I totally understood that. They only received a score of 41. And since the scoring in section 910 on I believe page 911, but don't quote me on that last one, only expresses the value for each criterion as a potential, it's impossible for us to determine how these scores were
I'm
reached.
gonna ask for a point of order.
Sure,
Okay.
please state your point.
I just feel like Councilmember Mochler needs to be explaining to us why you would like to, like us to entertain your motion.
Germane
My
on the issue, yeah.
entirely bad.
I will agree with that of
I was
keeping it
wrong.
germane to the
So wrong.
motion. to
Thank you
postpone.
so much. Okay, sorry to talk over you. Okay, so here, I want to be able to explain to my constituents, and if you have flood prone areas in your districts, I want you to be able to explain to them too. Here's the scoring system. Here's how it worked. Even though you had extensive damage to your house and property, it was not some of the other criteria that I'm just throwing out at random. It's not a good candidate for a major grant. It isn't going to affect a fish-bearing stream, and therefore you only got this score. I'd like to be able to explain that. And since my experience with stormwater has been that they're wildly competent, I'm sure that information is laid out somewhere. So I'm not asking for the stormwater comprehensive plan to turn around and become a whole different animal, but to just include these two specific points. And I personally will be quite happy to simply review those two at the study session and then take action at that time. That's all that I'm asking for. Was that better?
Okay, just comments to me. Perfect. Any other comments or questions on this motion to postpone? Yes, Councilmember Dennehy.
And I will direct this towards, I'm not sure, can I direct this towards the person making the motion at this point, or?
You can direct it to comments to me.
Sure. Okay, Council President, I'm hearing argument for postponement. I'm not sure if I am swayed that information wouldn't be available and be able to be communicated even if we take action on this plan tonight. So yeah, I wanted to ask a question, but I guess it's more of a.
You can ask a question to Mr. Thium.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, thank you. Mr. Thium, is that information that could be provided to Councilmember Mochler and or constituents, even if we pass the comp plan? Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions on the motion to postpone? All right, Councilman, we're good now.
This would be to Chance. Would this type of information normally be in a comprehensive plan? So, because clearly it's not been. So would that be?
Well, tried something unique, and that is taking all these projects and trying to evaluate them based on their environmental impact versus property impact versus, is it a fish barrier essentially, or is it something that is damaging property? And the thing with damaging property is we take that very seriously. So if somebody ever calls us and says, hey, we got a problem here, we respond in force to fix that. And we don't leave things laying untended for a long period of time. The fix might not be perfect, but it is adequate to make sure the property is no longer being damaged or protected. And that's pretty consistent. So the ranking system is just a new concept. Like I said, we've never done that before in any of our projects, so it gives us a guide to look at the different buckets, because we have fish barriers, we have water quality, we have capacity issues, we have just substandard main issues. So there's 3 or 4 different buckets that we always consider, 5 sometimes, and we look at how these things fit into our program. And again, how capacity of staff is available or available funds to do certain things. Grants we can get for treatment of the water quality, essentially. That's easy. We can get those pretty consistently. But the actual dollars out of the stormwater utility to pay for system capacity increases or CIPP lining, or total replacement because we have to upsize pipes, that is coming right out of the utility budget. It's not grant funded. And when we do transportation projects, again, we pay into that with capital dollars directly out of the utility usually.
So hearing you say that this is relatively new sort of tool you've developed, I'd be a little leery to sort of codify it in a long-term plan because, you know, in a couple of weeks, you may find a piece that makes that better. I do think it's important for us to be able to communicate with our residents about what it is. I think there's a feeling sometimes that you're like getting the runaround sort of because it's not black and white enough for a resident to be able to understand. But I'm not 100% sure that that this is the right place to put that in. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Yes, Denise Fry.
I'm not an expert in any of this, and I don't do deep dives into subject matter that I don't know about. I rely on you, and I rely on fellow council people with experience or background, or I pull something up during the council meeting on the web, because everything on the web is true, right? It's more of a 30,000 foot view, but I think it's an important point to make. And that is that one of the council's goals for this year is to develop policies that encourage environmental stewardship. So, that's important to us. And so when I Google real quick, and I just Googled like stormwater and comprehensive planning, and I found this 2020 University of Nebraska paper, and they talk, one of the first things was it's called integrating wetland conservation into local planning, and there's a whole section on stormwater. And one of the first things they say is map all the wetlands for consideration in projects. So that's my, my little thing of research, which can get me in trouble, all the time. When council sets a priority that environmental, it's important to us. I want to hear that. I want to see it in all of our planning documents. I don't want to just be told, oh, they covered that in the permit. Do we want to wait until they require something in a permit if it's a best practice and the right thing to do? Maybe, I don't know. But when I read our documents, our planning documents, I want to see words, and it's like the job description, and Director Nucky took that back and flushed it out. Words matter. Mm-hmm. And when I look at your whole presentation, I didn't feel it. I didn't see it, even though certain things are applicable. And so I'm not saying I'm not going to vote for this or anything. I'm just saying, I think we're starting to challenge the process a little bit and saying, why are we always just project focused? Where's the vision and how the projects fit into the vision, right? And if our environmental safeguards are important, they should be there somewhere. So that's my kind of disappointment with this, is that I wish it spoke to me, with that. And
I'm just going to jump in and ask you to tie Jermaine back to the motion to postpone.
Yeah, well, I said I don't think I'm going to stand in its way for more discussion. I think the point just needed to be made that I don't feel it. I don't read it.
Yes, Councilmember Denny.
This is my last question for Mr. Buthan. This isn't to be facetious or snarky or anything. This is actually a question because this is, again, not my area of expertise either, but I'm seeing in the comprehensive plan 3.42, an entire subject, an entire page on wetlands. On page 1, figure 3.1, wetlands and hydric soils. So am I missing something that is not being included about wetlands that other folks are seeing?
There's a nexus between stormwater and wetlands, but it's more about what we can put into a wetlands from a storm system. It defines the quantity of water you can discharge into a wetland does not disturb the hydrological function of the wetland. And the quality of the water has to be fairly clean before it can be discharged. So there's those two things. Am I getting that right, Phil? Does that quantify really what?
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's
the page that you're looking at is what we added comments before. So it's really I don't disagree with reviewing, and I didn't tend to be a little bit of an issue, and they can cause grief on occasion in the sense of how projects are done. But again, it's not typically part of a stormwater comprehensive plan. It's just not. It's not, they're addressed in the permit, and it requires certain considerations when you're doing a project around them. But it's a land use.
And I just want to be clear that I realize that it's not normally part of it. I like Councilmember Fry's point that that's okay. It's part of a goal and we should challenge process. But what I'm reading is in response to the August 9th study session, you did include, I just want to be clear that what I'm seeing delineates the wetlands and hydraulic or the hydric soils, and that is going to be included. Is that right? Correct?
That is what you see in it, and that is in the plan.
Okay, thank you. Just want to be clear. Thanks a lot.
Yes, Councilor Mochler, and then let's see if we can bring it home on this motion.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not going to launch into a whole thing about the interaction of wetlands and stormwater, but I am going to say that there are a number of maps in the Stormwater Comprehensive Report that indicate wetland areas. Only one of those maps indicates the Wright Creek wetlands. I'm just saying, let's be consistent and have that wetland system show up in all of them. And I think particularly the Wright Creek wetlands are of importance. Sorry, I should be addressing all of you. I beg pardon. I think the Wright Creek wetlands are particularly important because up near the beginning of them, like between Werner Road and the Bark Park at Pendergast, is a stormwater retention pond. I have that right? And then down near the bottom where Wright Creek stops being a beaver wetland and becomes just a creek and starts heading for the ocean, well, heading for the sound, there is Reservoir 3. So we have 2 city facilities located within 100 feet of the Wright Creek wetland system. And therefore, I think its inclusion in every one of the maps is of use. Somebody's going to come in at some point and all they need to know is they only need to look at one map. And if the Wright Creek wetlands aren't on that one map, this isn't a difficult fix and it implies no criticism whatsoever. It's just let's get this done. And then we can move on to the next thing. Yeah.
Yes, Councilmember Chamberlain.
Okay. All right. Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I've traveled down there. I just actually was down there doing a little bit of blackberry picking today and did a little meandering route along this wetland. And so what I hear Councilor Mochler saying is that there's not consistency in the maps. Is that what I'm understanding? Is there maps that don't include the complete wetland area consistently in the entire plan? Okay. That I would love to see that as well. Having traveled down there and seen the extensive just the sheer quantity of wetland space that's back there and I would love to see the consistency as well.
Take my turn on comments on this round. And then let's call the question on the motion. So I'm hearing that there's obviously a request to update the map and then explain the scoring system better. But Mr. Berthium, I think I've heard you say that you can explain the scoring system to folks if they inquire, or that could be put on a website outside of the plan. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
You can do that.
So I think for me, my one concern is then, yeah, just the map consistency. I don't want to delay this any longer. There is an option I think council has of, if we do vote to delay it to study session, if this is the one change, basically the one change that council does end up agreeing on, of putting it in there and taking action next week, if it's already updated at the study session, we can still get it done pretty quick. So I want to throw that idea out there. We've done that before, where we take action in a study session. Kind of where I'm leaning at the moment, just to get this all consistent. But I think with that said, unless there's any other comments or questions from council, we'll see. Okay, I'll ask this if Mr. Berthium or your consultant want to respond to any of that.
Did you have anything to say?
Well, regarding the maps, now I think it's important to acknowledge that the maps are just part of the planning process, and some maps depict different features. And not all maps are intended or should include all information. And in my estimation, I believe there's only one or two other maps that even depict surface water features. And they do, in fact, depict the Wright Creek wetland, albeit at a scale that's very small. But, creating a map portfolio that depicts the Wright Creek wetland at a level of detail that is similar, if not better, than the new map that we added, is not something that we could probably have done in time for next week. It's a rework of all the figures in the plan. Now, I do believe that information is in there. It's just a question of the level of detail, because we're using the same wetland GIS data in all maps that depict wetland features. So I certainly acknowledge and respect the comment about consistency and having that be part of the plan. I do believe that it is consistent, and I think that we would that it's probably more complicated than it would seem at first blush to create that kind of map consistency. So that is not the consistency, but to create a new set of maps that depict the Wright Creek wetland at a level of detail that there's absolutely no question as to whether it's there and what it is.
Well, there's one area in the back of the plan that is assessment. Now that has a lot of beautiful, colorful maps that show the soil types all throughout the city. And that was done as part of our earlier effort. Which really is a good indicator of where wetland soils and infiltration is essentially not going to happen there. So you can tell where the wetlands are about that. But that's a simple map based off of the USGS soil maps. Right? So, but it's good information if you're looking at a particular area for development, for infiltration potential, or any other type of stormwater management. I don't, honestly, there's other maps that show the basin areas, they show the system themselves. They're not really, I don't see I agree with Phil, there's probably one other map that probably could be enhanced, but I don't know where that is off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate clarifying all that. Let's, see a few more comments, questions. Let's do really quick round, and then I'm going to call for the question on this motion. So let's start with Councilmember Chamberlain, because I saw her hand first, and then back to Mockler.
Thank you. So I see the space represented on figure 3.5 and 3.6. And I want specifically to know if there are other figures where it should be listed according to, and I recognize Counselor Mockler's, experience, expertise in this issue, so I want to honor that. And I'd like to know which other figures that this particular, is it a basin? Is it an infiltration? Can you explain to me which figures it's missing? Thank you.
For clarification, was that question to Mr. Berthium?
That was not a question for Mr. Berthium. I'm curious to know from Counselor Mockler, because she is more of an expert than any of us on council, because she is the one who is championing map inconsistency. And I'd like to know specifically which figures, because I want to also honor what Mr. Struck has said, which is that it would take a long time to rework, and also perhaps inappropriate to rework all these different figures, all these different maps to include this basin, this watershed, this wetland area, when it's not any more special than other spaces. You know what I mean? But I want to know specifically which maps this space would be best represented on, where it's missing. From Councilor Mock.
You have the floor.
Figure 3.1, watershed location, shows a number of different wetlands. For example, very prominently, that series of marshes which run southwest from the southern portion of Kitsap Lake. Now, I'm scrolling as fast as I can. Figure 3.4, surface water features, shows a number of wetlands prominently, including the aforesaid Kitsap Lake. These are all lacking the right creek, I should mention. Scrolling along, fast as I can. Okay. Figure 3.8, water quality impairments, lacks the Right Creek wetlands. Figure, somebody write all of that down, or do I have to keep scrolling forever? Sorry.
I'm ready to continue.
Okay, thank you. So that's a number of figures, and I had the people I know who do GIS would not have found that so difficult, but perhaps this is a whole new system and a whole new level of detail, as Mr. Struck says, that would make it difficult to insert that element. Just have the Right Creek wetlands in all of the maps. That would be, it wouldn't be Christmas, but it'd be pretty good.
So let me make sure I understood that. Oh, sorry, Councilmember Good now. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So it's great if we can get those added. But again, this is a comprehensive plan. It's a higher vision, as I hope we're not using this document as the single go-to to determine a wetland. So I think if we can get those changes in, that would be great. But there must be a document that is the go or no go, that black or white, that tells us what is a wetland. And that's what we use, I would hope, when we do any planning and things like that. I would assume folks aren't going to be pulling up the comprehensive plan at the planning desk to say that they can build something on their land. So I just don't see the need to delay this, and I don't see the need to necessarily put these changes in, but I wholeheartedly support them if we can get them in.
I'll ask, because I think I heard before it'd be tough to make these changes, and then I didn't quite hear you just a moment ago on whether they could be made.
They can be made.
Okay. But by next week or?
Yeah.
Okay. And then is there another, I'm guessing there's, to Council Goodnow's comment, there's a separate document that lists wetlands, just to confirm that's correct.
Showing me that that on figure 3.4, you can see the wetlands. It's there. It's just because with these maps in the comp plan.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Bertheum. Can you get a little closer to the mic?
With these.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. My voice is
Yeah,
kind of
it's getting late.
So in the comp plan on figure 3.4, you can see the wetland is in the map. It's just the map also covers half of the city of Port Orchard all the way up to the northernmost boundary of the city. It's a zoom factor, right? So that is what a lot of the problems with these maps are, is that, you know, when we do try to get as much area, I mean, we're a big city. You go all the way out to Mason County line, essentially all the way to East Bremerton. You know, we have a big area, and when you put it all on one map, all of these things kind of disappear. They get real minuscule, and especially when you put them on 11.5 line, real small. So the data is there. So, you know, it's not going to change that figure. There may be another figure change, but that particular is not moving.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Whether there's comments or questions or not, we can vote, but I'm going to call for the, I'm going to call for the question. If there's no objection on the motion to postpone.
Councilmember Dennehy,
No.
Goodnow,
No.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
No.
Chamberlain,
No.
Fry,
No.
Coughlin.
No.
Motion fails. 1 yes, 6 no's.
Okay. We're back to, oh, please. Order. Thank you. We're back to the main motion that was on the table. And I believe council members Goodnow and Denny, he have already spoken, and that last we left off, it was Councilmember Mochler had the floor. So Councilmember Mochler, if you wanted to continue any remarks there, the floor is yours.
The changes are not going to be made. I recommend that we call for the question. Not going to win every one.
I had a
you. Yes,
question. May I
Councilmember
go ahead
Chamberlain?
and ask a couple just really briefly before we call? for
We're
the
back to the
question?
main motion, so you have the floor.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And so apologies to our member that made a public comment. I'm just gonna ask for a little bit of grace because this may feel like it's steering away from being germane, but bear with me just a moment because maybe that public comment does warrant some exploration, but it may be something that's solved. Mr. Nielsen, is this something that solved the, I'm about to cough just right when I'm talking to you, always. There was concern about the pump station security. We had another item. Which was in our consent agenda 4G. Does that cover that?
So this is really in two separate items. This is for the stormwater, and the stormwater is not regulated by the SCADA and controlled water flow. So that does not impact the monitoring. Does that help answer your question?
Okay, so our 4G does not cover any additional security for pump stations.
4G covers additional security for pump station.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I think that's where I was concerned that there wasn't, I felt like that whether we were going towards something that wasn't germane because it was already covered in our consent agenda. And so there is going to be increased security in our pump stations when this contract goes into place with this town.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other comments or questions on the main motion? Seeing none, I'll take my turn to wrap up, and yeah, let me just extend a tremendous amount of gratitude to you and the contractors for working on this long comp plan. It is, hundreds of pages. It does go on the next 6 years, so I think it's a very important document along with the rest of the comp plan that we're going to be working on for the next year and a half to really deep dive. And so to that end, I want to thank Councilmember Mochler for deep diving. I think each one of us on council has different skill sets and expertises, and this is definitely her area. And I think it's really important to take our time on these documents because they have a big impact down the road. I tell everybody all the time, man, you want to really get something done in the long term, make sure it's in the comp plan, make sure it's specific. We can point to it if it's not getting done. And so I really do appreciate, I know this took extra time to discuss this, but I know I learned more about this document as a result. I think we fleshed out a lot of really important concerns. So thank you, Councilmember Mockler, for deep diving. And thank you, Mr. Berthume, for answering all these questions and letting us really poke at it and understand it. I can talk to a constituent much better now, having gone through this. So appreciation to all. With that, I will call for the question on the main motion.
Councilmember Fry,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mockler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have council reports. And thank you again, Mr. Berthume. On to item A7, council reports are an opportunity for council members to provide an update on any issues or events taking place in the district, events they've recently attended or plan to attend, or any other city-related topic. Since this is the second council meeting of the month, we'll start with District 7, Councilmember Eric Younger.
Thank you. No report.
All right, thank you. Next up, District 6, Councilmember Anna Mockler.
Single mic is a help. So this is the District 6 Council report. I will move through it as quickly as I possibly can. Please, next slide, please. At my last town hall, we had some really intriguing conversations. The next one is coming up on September 11th. Even though it is September 11th, even though I worked in the North Tower, we will still be having the meeting. Life continuing is what we're going to do. Next slide, please. So really great news this week. Actually a real game changer. These kids that ranged in age from 5 to 12 sued the state of Montana because it was not providing them the healthy environment that their constitution guaranteed. And by gum, the judge ruled in favor of them because there was here's my off the cuff, but basically I think there was a law on the books that forbade the legislature to consider climate consequences or energy efficiency whenever they made any decision. In my editorial, it's like basically to act like we still had all the oil in the world and a pristine world all around it. So this is good news about climate crisis. So we're going to move on to bad news. Yes. Next slide, please. So, so these are invasive grasses, which make up about 60% of the abandoned sugarcane fields upwind of Lahaina in Hawaii. When the sugarcane fields were abandoned in the 1990s, these invasive grasses moved in. They're adapted to fire. If you look at them and you say, gosh, they look about 6 feet tall, they are. Next slide, please. This was a really considerable contribution to the devastation at Lahaina. Next slide, please. And I'm bringing up these native plants because I bring them up and people kind of look at me like, huh? The reason to use native plants in our plantings and all of that is that they're used to our climate. They're used to the dry summers and the wet winters. They are pollinated by our local pollinators. They serve the whole ecosystem that keeps us going. Here, this is a very misleading photograph, but it was really all I had. This is Bay Vista, and this one tree happens to be dead. You know, it's been a tough summer. But I guess my point here, next slide, please, is that these trees are designed to be like accent trees. They're never going to grow up to shade these streets. They're never going to really mitigate the effects of the climate crisis. I don't know how we can make everything perfect, but I do think that there are ways we can make everything better. one great thing that DCD did all along the Bay Vista area is they insisted on irrigation for the first few years. And that was brilliant. But we really need to do more because walking those streets, I tell you, your feet are at about 122 degrees. Next slide, please. Excellent. That is the end of the slides, and that's good news for all of you. Have a really good night and stay hydrated.
Next up, District 5, Councilmember Michael Goodnow.
Yeah, I don't have a report today.
All right, next up, District 4, Councilmember Quinn Dennehy.
I didn't have a report, but I did want to comment because it was my home state, the federal judge that made that ruling, and it was Montana that codified in their constitution a right to an environment that's safe and healthy. And I don't know what the political appointments on the Supreme Court are there, but I really hope that they uphold that decision as it goes through. As we deal with our own heat wave here in Bremerton, there are reports of people for the first time in, I believe, Arizona being treated for falling on the street and getting burned because the pavement and the sidewalks are just so hot. So I commend everybody that continues to fight for the environment, especially with the recent destruction in Maui. Yeah, just appreciation for that. So thank you.
All right, District 2, Councilmember Denise Fry.
Thank you. Yeah, we can skip over that one. I want to give a shout out to the cart tags. Isn't that what they were called from Waste Management? I didn't know this. I mean, call me ignorant. I was. It never dawned on me. I have a big old green waste can because I do a lot of yard work. And I dump my green waste in that. And I didn't think. Now I got a little compost can on my counter in my kitchen, and I'm composting. Anyway, don't think I would have done that without that cart tag. So it can work. It can work, and you can even put pizza boxes in them and things like that. All right, let's move forward into the next one. Oop, back up. I prefer to remember Lahaina the way it was. This is a very special place to me, very spiritual place. It used to be the kingdom's capital, the Kingdom of Hawaii. It's the community that's helping there now. It's not necessarily the government, although they are. I'm not going to begrudge our community from helping. That's what we do. You know, we happen to own 2 rental properties in Maui, and both are now being used for temporary housing. It's what community does. And so I'm not going to begrudge our people out there on MLK, but the government should be there to help. And I certainly hope that we can do that. We have a lot of Hawaiian citizens or natives in Bremerton, and I have met them recently. And I want to send my love and support out to all the Lahaina Ohana. And on such a significant loss, our hearts are with you. And yeah, Councilmember Mockler, let's not make the same mistake here. You know, let's get rid of those grasses. So that's it for me.
All right, next up, District 1, Vice President Jennifer Chamberlain.
Thank you. I have a couple of pictures. So it's harvest time. A lot of us hobby gardeners and farmers out there. I mean, you know, this is when the harvest really starts popping around here. A lot of folks, especially with farmers markets starting earlier in the year around May, there's not a lot of produce there, but man, this time of year is popping right now. It's green beans, tomatoes are still green. This is at the pea patch at Blueberry Park. I'm just loving, for obvious reasons, of that progressives, or hopefully other people will know that loving all the sunflowers and still in solidarity with Ukraine. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little distracted by, sorry about that. There's another picture. And you can hardly see my green beans there, but I just wanted to say, you know, throw a shout out to Director Elevato and the Parks Department for getting some more signs out, reminding people not to pick the produce. While I'm totally sympathetic to folks who need food, I personally, having been a recipient of different food banks, I know how much produce is overwhelmingly in the front offices, the front lobby of food banks right now. And if anybody has extra produce to donate, there's always programs like Grow a Row, where you can just take it directly to your local food bank. But thank you, Director Lovato, for putting some more signs out there. And we can go to the next slide. I think everybody has a little bit of Maui on their heart today. And my understanding is it's the largest natural disaster in 100 years. And so the Hawaii Community Foundation is a wonderful cause to donate to. There's a lot of, when there's natural disasters and there's things that happen, there's a lot of causes that could pop up, and I want to encourage you to donate however you feel comfortable donating. This is a good organization here. There's also, Maui Food Bank. There's people who are donating boots on the ground. And a lot of folks a lot more folks are going to be facing houselessness in Maui. And so sending my love out to all the families, because we have a strong Pacific Islander group of folks here. And I know of folks who have family in Lahaina that have lost everything. And so the next slide. Hey, Kitsap Islander Festival this weekend. Hey, so Pendergast Park, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's a long day, but man, it's a day of fun. And you know what? I think it's going to dip below 80 on that day. So I think you should come out. There might even be some cloud cover to speak of. So I think that's all my slides. And I just, as we navigate this ordinance for houselessness, for homeless individuals, I think that I might submit some documents to y'all that are from my uncle who died of depression and alcoholism, and he died indigent. And so I might submit some information from him to you, some letters that he wrote to me. Because I really appreciated what the public commenter Jocelyn said, that these are people's brothers, these are people's loved ones out there. And what we have the privilege of is we have access to resources. We have money that we can give out to promote other resources, trained individuals. Families are tired. Families aren't trained to deal with the complex issues of houselessness. And so they're tired and they need help and they need support. And what a privilege it is that we can be in this role to, and some cog in a wheel to be able to support this issue in a positive way. Also, I think it's against my rental agreement to bring somebody else home that's not on my lease. So I think also it's against my rental agreement to have a tent in my yard, and also against city code for me to have a tent in the yard. So there's a lot of issues with this solution that a lot of people seem to think that you can bring somebody home from the streets. No, I mean, I don't want to get thrown out of my apartment. Thank you. So thanks for the opportunity to listen to public comments. There really is a lot that I do gain from listening to folks that have divergent thinking from me, and not just the opportunity to reply to what I don't agree with, but there are some good things that I hear. So keep coming back and keep sharing your ideas. And I'm looking forward to this space station thing. So congratulations on that. That's a big deal. 1 of 11. Woo! Thank you very much. Have a good evening, y'all.
Thank you. Wrap home here. Just leave it on the title slide. I wanted to respond to some of the public comments as well before getting into the slides. Actually, first, I forgot to mention closing up the stormwater comp plan comment. An explicit thank you for incorporating a lot of that feedback from council, and especially Councilmember Mockler. So I didn't say that out loud, and I really wanted to. So thank you for the collaboration. I much appreciated. Ferry Coalition meeting. I was sad to miss that last night. I think I've made every other one. We did reach out to so council last year wrote a resolution we got a response back from the state, but not from the governor itself. This year we pushed back again on the governor for a response. We got one, so make sure that people get a copy of that response specifically to the resolution from the ferry. But yeah, keep pushing and keep the pressure on, because this has been a 20-year plus problem with WSF, in my opinion. It got exacerbated by the pandemic, but it has not been solely responsible for it. So I think we need to keep the pressure on, not only for Bremerton, but to make sure the system gets stable for the future. On Prop 1, since that election is done, we can talk about that one, just not ongoing current elections. I was really disappointed personally to see that, my opinion, kind of narrowly fail. I would like to get a group of folks together to figure out how to do this again, and inviting everybody from all viewpoints, because I really do not see an alternative except to do this again, get the funding, because I'll tell you from my constituents, being in touch with them, they're seeing the need for EMS, as they're called, or stretched to almost the breaking point. I continually got asked specifically for more BPD officers, especially programs like the bike patrol, that most people really do appreciate the BPD. And so we need to find a way to get them funding. Folks I've talked to, I think, were scared off because they thought that their entire property tax bill was going up by 30%, which was not true. That was the city portion. Of course, their total bill would only be about 4.5%. And the city portion has been much higher in the past as well. So I think part of it was also education on that end. As far as the camping ordinance, I also want to kind of make clear the current ordinance that is on the books is not being enforced, by the city at the moment. So it's, frankly, in my opinion, it doesn't matter whether it's repealed or it's not being enforced. There are plenty of laws on the books that may be out of date and that aren't enforced. What we are doing is, we're looking at different cities across the board for the right solution. But it's important to look at all those other cities, because you learn a lot when you look at a dozen different examples and find out what other cities have done. And if we're able to take parts that pertain to Bremerton, that's going to help us be so much better. So I want to be clear that we're not straight copying another city's code. We're looking at others. So we are basically from scratch coming up with a new code that works for Bremerton based on all the information we've gained from other cities. And finally, I want to reiterate the public's right to speak uninterrupted. You get 3 minutes, whether it's public recognition or public comment. As long as you don't get threatening, we would of course hope you stay germane and relevant to make your point. But you get those 3 minutes, and if you wanted to read Dr. Seuss, you could. So I just want to reiterate, the public has that right. All right, and finally to my slides, I'll run through real quick. They already covered some of these. So I was at the Housing and Homelessness Coalition meeting this afternoon. I usually make most months meetings, and there was this great presentation I just pulled a couple slides from about this company called Pallet Housing. And from my understanding, they're able to get together these communities in really a couple days. And so next slide, they basically have this modular framework where they can quickly assemble these structures. They can last decades, but they can be put up and taken down in about a day. If you go to the next slide, they have tons of different models. But here on the left is just one example of a small shelter. They have some bigger ones thank you, perfect. And so you can see the kind of 2 beds there, some built-in facilities. On the right is a standard bathroom. They also have an accessible version as well. They also have a laundry facility and a couple other modular designs. And next slide, it appears this company has been nationwide to highlight the states that they've where they've erected pallet shelter villages. And what I liked from the presentation was they measured outcomes. So specifically looking at Washington, they've set up places in Vancouver and Everett, and they note that when these have gone in, there's been a sharp drop in calls for service by EMS or police or public works as well. And next slide. I think to wrap up, they highlighted a couple projects. This was, I think, the one closest comparable. Vancouver's 4 or 5 times our population, but they with city funds were able to put up about 29 shelter units. They kind of highlight their 30% reduction in EMS calls from around the area. So this is, I think, as we talk about the camping ordinance, as we read it, is one tiny piece of this really large puzzle. So as we work on that, of course, there's this whole separate issue. So I wanted to highlight this, Mayor, if this is something as we go forward, looking at sites in the city that would be acceptable to create a place like this, if this is possibly a solution we can look at in partnership with the county and other cities. It'd be great to look at. Yeah, how about I finish real quick and then I'm happy to let you speak to it. Next slide. So highlight the construction already highlighted. Appreciate folks continuing to reach out to Public Works because I really do sympathize with some of the businesses that have been impacted more than others. But I do want to give a kudos to Public Works on the lower picture, 11th and Washington for and the mayor for working with the residents there who had some short-term parking issues during construction and finding a solution there. So thank you so much for working with the residents. Next slide. And you can go to the next one too, just to highlight two great music events. Music of Manette's going on every Thursday evening and Rock the Dock every Saturday evening downtown at the waterfront. And I think that was it, unless I had one more. Oh, I did. This was neat. We talking about ferries. The chamber is partnering with the Carlisle to do a little pop-up ferry between Bremerton and Silverdale during the Blackberry Festival. So there's been talks going in the future, bringing back Mosquito Fleet and sailings from Bremerton to Silverdale, maybe Bremerton to Bainbridge, stuff like that. So neat to see this kind of tried out and see the demand. All right, that should be it for me. And oh gosh, okay, Beautify Bremerton, we already covered it. I put too much in. But if I have any remaining time, I'm happy to cede that to you, Mayor, real quick, if you wanted to comment on the pallet home company, and I'm sure there's similar ones out there too.
Thank you, Council President. Yes, I was just on the email this evening and organizing a field trip right now with some of our local leadership, and we're going to go and visit one in person. So then, of course, we'll just learn from them and see what fits for Bremerton. No use recreating a model that's already been well vetted and is in place. So, yep, thank you.
Excellent. It's great to hear, and I'm sure I know myself and likely other council members will be happy to join if we're able to. I think that'd be a great partnership. Excellent. All right, and with that, I'll announce the next study session will be held in the 6th floor council conference room next Wednesday, August 23rd, beginning at 5 p.m. With, as always, a remote option by Zoom to watch. And note that because the 5th Wednesday this month, everyone should be taking it off to relax. The next regular council meeting will be Wednesday, September 6th. That concludes tonight's regular council business. Thank you all. Meeting is adjourned.